Let our guard down. We cannot let our guard down. It was a great victory we had this Friday. We were able to get it out of committee. Ron's bill, it wasn't watered down. Of course, that's just like winning the first game of the World Series. There's a lot more to go. We got to keep hitting them. And here to tell us how to do that, special ed school teacher from Maine, Mr. Jay Syrene. I don't want to say Severin. Different guy. Jay Syrene.
Hello, everybody. We've heard a lot today about how bad the Federal Reserve is, why we should end the Federal Reserve, why we should audit the Federal Reserve. I think all of us here know why it's such a bad system, but how do we end the Federal Reserve? How do we stop this? Now, Ron Paul had a good idea about his Audit the Fed bill. He first introduced an Audit the Fed in the early 80s when he was a very young representative, and he got 1 or 2 co-sponsors. Now, 69% of the House has co-sponsored it, and it's passed. It's headed to the Senate. It has 31 co-sponsors, and they might gut it. It might not pass. The reason why it went from 1 or 2 sponsors 20 years ago to now 31 sponsors in the Senate, or over 300 in the House, is because of information. People are waking up to the fact that the Federal Reserve is stealing our money. They're waking up to the fact that the Federal Reserve is a privately owned central bank and it does not operate in the best interest of the people. So how do we end it? How, as people standing here, do we bring about change and end the Federal Reserve? Well, information. It's getting out the information, informing the public. You know, what can you do as an individual? I started a little website, brothersofliberty.com, still working on it, started a public access show, and those are just little things. But if everybody can do little things like that, then we're going to start to disseminate this information. That's why this is such a good rally, because we can hand out flyers, we can hand out literature, and if everybody knew how bad the Federal Reserve was, how badly they were screwing the American people, then the public would be up in arms. We'd have the Federal Reserve audited tomorrow. So that's our mission. That's our goal, is to get people to know about the Federal Reserve. You know, there's a good quote by Henry Ford. He said, you know, I believe if the people of the United States knew how the banking establishment worked, there'd be a revolution in the streets before tomorrow morning. And it's true. We just have to get out that information. You know, we weren't born knowing this knowledge about the Federal Reserve. All of us had to learn it one way or another. And there's people walking down the street now, if you hand them a flyer, and they say, why are all these people here? Why are they so concerned? Why are they so angry about the Federal Reserve? And you just give them something to read, it'll open their eyes, and maybe they'll start to research it. Even if you can get to 1 in 100 people that you talk to about the Federal Reserve, that's still, if all of us here do that, it's going to expand our numbers exponentially. So run for office, you know, start handing out flyers at the place that you work. Get a flyer together. You don't even have to sign your name to it. Just put the flyer in the lunchroom, in the common area, have people read it. You know, a lot of people are just going to throw it away and say, I know nothing about the Federal Reserve. You know, a lot of people I talk to in the Federal Reserve, they don't even want to think about it. They want to go watch the Patriots at 4 o'clock, and that's fine. But if 1 in 100 people you talk to open their eyes to the Federal Reserve, then sooner or later, we're going to have the numbers, and they're not going to have the power. Right now, they have the power, and they have the numbers. We need to take back the numbers through information. We need to disseminate information. We need an informed public. You can visit my website, brothersofliberty.com. I want to read a quote from Thomas Jefferson on the Federal Reserve. Most of you people probably know it already. He says, if the American people ever allow private banks to control the issuance of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their forefathers conquered. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people whom it properly belongs. The modern theory of perpetuation of debt has drenched the earth with blood and crushed its inhabitants under burdens ever accumulating. That's Thomas Jefferson. I'll read one more quote from James Garfield. He said, whoever controls the volume of money in any country is absolute master of all industry and commerce. And when you realize that the entire system is easily controlled one way or the other by a few powerful men at the top, you will not have to be told how periods of inflation and deflation originate. Once people realize that the Federal Reserve is the reason for this economic collapse. They're the reason why the economy rose back and forth. Every 20 years it kind of goes down. The stock market crash, Black Monday in '87. If you read the Federal Reserve's track record, it's abominable. Inflation is at an all-time low. People are wondering right now, there's people on the streets wondering, why can I not buy what I could buy 20 years ago? And they're angry about that, but they don't know why. So if we can just do a little bit, each and every one of us, and a mass amount, if we get the numbers, we inform the people, and that guy walking down the street will no longer wonder why I can't buy as much as I used to be able to buy 20 years ago. Then he'll know, and then we'll see him here next year at the Federal Reserve rally. He'll call the state senator, and we're going to put the pressure on these guys. They can no longer say that the Federal Reserve is in the best interest of the American people, when the majority of the American people know that the Federal Reserve is a private organization bent on getting as much money as they possibly can from our tax dollars and from our buying power. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jay. All right.